scouts for society. The evolutionary purpose of that is to make sure that whatever you discover gets back to the mainstream.
We're in a stage where technology has been turned against the people.
The only icons we have on our phone are either thumbs up, thumbs down, and a heart. There is no umbrella for understanding, and most of the comments are hatred.
We have to find a way through culture, through leaders, to make a connection for people that felt left by a system.
Artists' interpretation of political reality are extremely important, and what they have to say will be vastly different. It's a pure form of reflection.
Trovare il giusto equilibrio tra l'esigenza di giustizia e l'esigenza di libertà.
If you connect with someone, then they're likely to have a human reaction, and empathy is one of the core things on which humanity is built.
You tell the things that somebody else may not be able to say, telling the truth the way it is.
As we lose trust in politics and politicians and justice, telling stories of the truth is very powerful.
Even if somebody disagrees with a performance of mine, like if you're talking women, you're talking education, you're talking family welfare, you're talking health, you're talking the environment, you're talking water resources, this intersectionality is so huge that you take one and in fact you are touching a lot of the others.
When you hear a musician from a different part of the world, you're not necessarily thinking about us versus them. Then the divisions melt away because you're caught in the moment.
A great song, a great piece of music, doesn't matter what language it's in, people feel it even more than they hear it.
A mio parere, la libertà di ciascuno di noi finisce laddove inizia quella degli altri.
We need to have other ways that lead us to create a common narrative.
People just want to come together. They don't want to be told to come together. They want to engage in conversations. They don't want to be preached to.
It opens a dialogue, and that conversation could be so influential.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your host for this evening, Mrs. Hilde Schwab.
First of all, thank you to the Crystal Award winners who introduced this evening. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, a very cordial welcome to all of you. I greet the long-standing members of the forum, community, and welcome particularly those who are joining us tonight for the first time. This award celebration is for me a very emotional event. It shows that we come here together not only to have a productive week, but also to bond together in a global village where we all deeply feel that we are part of one humanity. It is very appropriate to open the annual meeting 2019 with this cultural celebration. This is the 25th time that we start our annual meeting with the Crystal Award ceremony, and I would like to use this moment to remember one of the greatest musicians of our times, the late Lord Yehudi Menuhin. About 30 years ago, my husband Klaus was honored by the commune of Colonie, where we live, and he was granted a wish. He suggested to organize for the citizens of the village a concert and to invite Lord Yehudi Menuhin as the star violinist. Out of this rencontre, a deep friendship developed, and he became a true mentor of us, always insisting to integrate the humanistic and cultural dimension in everything we were doing. Lord Menuhin joined us here in Davos for the last time 20 years ago, shortly before he passed away. We pay tribute tonight by inviting the winner of the 2018 Menuhin Junior competition, 13-year-old Clara Shen. This friendship resulted in the creation of the Crystal Award. The purpose was and is to honor extraordinary people, personalities who excel in their art and who at the same time are role models for deep engagement in humanitarian or environmental issues. Many famous people in the arts and culture have joined the World Economic Forum in this way, and we have countless memorable moments. Just think of Andrea Bocelli, or Yo-Yo Ma, who is now a member of the Board of Trustees of the World Economic Forum, or Bono, who started the RED campaign here 10 years ago, and which has since raised $600 million to help AIDS patients, and who will be with us as well. Leonardo DiCaprio, who made an impassionate speech for environmental conservation, or Chaka Chaka, Princess of Africa, who made us all sing and dance. And I could go on and on. This year, we have again 3 extraordinary personalities to whom we present the Crystal Award. Marin Alsop, Haifaa al-Mansour, Sir David Attenborough. Marin Alsop receives the 2019 Crystal Award for her leadership in championing diversity in music. When Marin Alsop became the music director of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra in 2007, she was the first woman to hold this position with a major American orchestra. She is also the first woman to conduct the last night of the proms and the first conductor ever to receive the prestigious MacArthur Fellowship. She is leading the Sao Paulo Symphony Orchestra, guest conducting around the world, including at the London Symphony Orchestra, the South Bank Centre, Ravinia Festival, and more. Marin has enabled women and minorities to make a career in music. And while there is still much work to do for better representation, what she has achieved to date was unthinkable just a few decades ago. With part of her MacArthur grant, she started an after-school music program, OrgKid, 10 years ago with 30 students from the most deprived neighborhood in Baltimore. It was partly inspired by the Venezuelan El Sistema, whose founder, José Antonio Abreu, was a Crystal Award winner in 2009. Today, OrgKids has 1,300 students, and Marin wants it to grow to 10,000 in the next 10 years. When growing up, Marin had 2 posters on her bedroom wall, one of the Beatles and a bigger one of Leonard Bernstein. As Bernstein's best-known protege, Marin was central to his 100th anniversary global celebrations last year. She also knew Lottie Hoodie Menuhin, who inspired this award 25 years ago. And so, in some way, we have come full circle, 25 years later, to celebrate exceptional talents in music. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Marin Alsop for receiving the 2019 Crystal Award.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Schwab, Professor Schwab, and members of the World Economic Forum for this incredible honor. I firmly believe that art has the capacity to transform lives and that every human being deserves access to this transformative world of possibility. I didn't grow up with many of the advantages that typically define privilege, but I grew up with the greatest advantage of all, in a household that exuded hope and possibility. Learning to play a musical instrument at an early age gave me an outlet to express myself, receive external validation, and develop strong self-esteem. Unlike math, where you're either right or wrong, when you play a phrase on the violin, you're always right. The skills I learned, how to motivate myself to practice daily, that consistency and persistence are critical to improvement, how to work with others, when to step out, and when to listen. These are all skills that are transferable to every discipline, not singular to music. And I believe that every child deserves the same opportunity I had to develop these innate skills. When I told my parents that I wanted to become a conductor, just like the guy who conducted at the concert they took me to, that guy Leonard Bernstein, but that everyone was telling me, girls can't do that, my parents' response was sort of a mixture of of incredulity and outrage. And their response was, "That's ridiculous. Why not?" The next day when I came down to breakfast, there was this beautiful wooden box. I opened it up. It was filled with batons, conducting batons. In my 20s, when no one would give me a chance to even try my hand at conducting, my non-musical mentor, owner of Anne Klein Clothing, Tomi Otaki, said, "Why not?" He personally stepped up to help me start my own orchestra in New York City called Concordia. Mr. Taki invested not only in the orchestra, but also in the belief that I could break through the centuries-old glass ceiling in classical music. While I'm always surprised and even shocked that there can still be firsts for women in the 21st century, I'm of course proud to be the first woman to lead a major American orchestra, a major South American orchestra, to have been the first to conduct and lead a British orchestra, the Bournemouth Symphony. So many firsts, subscription concerts in Philadelphia, Los Angeles. I mean, it's boring to go on because, you know, there can still be firsts. I'm going to be the first woman to lead a Viennese orchestra starting in the fall with the Vienna Radio Symphony Orchestra. But being only one of a handful of conductors for such a long time, I knew that if gender equality was going to arrive on the podium, I would need to get involved and probably lead that change. With the support of Mr. Taki, I created the Taki Concordia Fellowship for women conductors. To date, 20 women have received fellowships, and they're all working in the field. 5 are American music directors, and we have several working in Europe as well. As I tell everyone, when the front door is locked and they won't let you in, just sneak around the side and go in the window. You know, thanks to my parents, when I found the doors closed to me, my first response was, "That's ridiculous. Why not me?" During my first season of working and living in Baltimore, it was overwhelmingly apparent to me that the children in Baltimore City were in crisis. Drugs, poverty, shootings are daily occurrences, and public schools are struggling to find resources. Families face economic hardships, leaving no option for creative enrichment. 65% of Baltimore City public schools are considered low income. 32% of the kids are living below the poverty line. After being here at the World Economic Forum in 2006, I was hugely inspired by your commitment to use your positions and resources to better our world. I thought to myself after that, why not me too? So with the funds from my MacArthur grant, I started a program in West Baltimore, as you mentioned, with 30 first graders called Orchestra Kids, or ORCIDS. It's a year-round, intensive after-school and during-school music program, provides creative immersion, free instruments, performance opportunities, healthy meals, academic support, mentorship, and summer travel to Baltimore's underserved youth and their families. The students in ORCIDS have higher grades, higher rates of attendance, lower rates of chronic absence, and fewer suspensions. ORCIDS students have attended music camps now in Michigan, Los Angeles, New York, Austria, Italy, and the UK. This spring, our very first ORCIDS will be graduating from high school. One graduating senior, Asia Palmer, just received her first acceptance letter to college. She will be the first person in her family to go to college. Now in its 10th year, ORCIDS is considered a leading music education and social change initiative in the United States. From those 30 kids in 2008, we've grown to over 1,300 kids today who all say the same thing I said, why not me? ORCIDS now serves kids at 7 schools with students coming from at least 15 schools around Baltimore City. There's a waiting list as we work to scale our program. My dream is to arrive at a place where ORCIDS touches every student in the Baltimore City public school system. 10,000 would be great, but I'm shooting for 85,000. Music has opened the door to futures filled with possibility for them, and every child deserves access to this program. When kids encounter the response, why not you, and find themselves succeeding in something they never dreamed of doing, like playing the violin, they internalize this mantra and can envision themselves doing almost anything. Thank you all for inspiring me to think outside the box and for supporting important initiatives that are changing lives. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Haifaa al-Mansour receives the 2019 Crystal Award for her leadership in cultural transformation in the Arab world. Her film Bajra from 2012, which tells the story of a young girl yearning for the right to ride a bicycle, was the first feature film shot entirely in Saudi Arabia. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival and has won many awards. To get a sense of Haifaa's influence on the culture of Saudi Arabia, consider that when she was making Bajra, she could not be outside with the actors. She had to be in a van using a walkie-talkie to direct, because men and women were not supposed to mix in the workplace, especially in public. Today, in contrast, Haifaa is a member of the board of the General Authority for Culture to advise on the development of the cultural and art sectors in Saudi Arabia. Recently, Haifaa released 2 Hollywood productions, Mary Shelley and Happily Ever After. She is the first artist from the Arabian Gulf region to be invited to join the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Haifaa al-Mansour for receiving the 2019 Crystal Award.
Thank you, Mrs. Schwab, and thank you, Professor, and for the World Economic Forum for giving me this amazing award. Well, I'm really overwhelmed to be here because I come from a small town in Saudi Arabia, and it is big to be here today. And I was exposed to film as a kid, watching the videos on, because films weren't illegal at the time, and my father used to show me films, but those films made me feel I'm part of a bigger world. It made me love the world and made me who I am today. It made me be able to challenge things like making wajda in Saudi Arabia and being in a van and going through the bureaucracy. But it is important to expose young people to film and art and culture, especially in conservative places. It will change them and makes them embrace what we mean by being a global citizen. And that is what we want from places in the Middle East, to create that global citizen who feels ownership of their destiny and where they want to do, what they want to do. And a lot of people told me, you are the first female filmmaker. So from Saudi Arabia, you must be very brave. And I always say I'm crazy, more than brave. But it is because I wanted to have a voice, and I wanted to have a passion, and because I wanted to be happy. And we need to create those spaces for people. And especially when you come to a place where people tell you all the time, art is immoral and will corrupt your soul. Hearing a song is not the right thing to be virtuous. To go against all those voices in your head and expose a culture to music and bring music to the public space is a dream that we should support. Culture and building culture is really what makes difference in the whole world. And thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Sir David Attenborough receives the 2019 Crystal Award for his leadership in environmental stewardship. What can I say about Sir David that has not been said? Did you know that he was recently voted by the British as the most trustworthy personality in Britain? it may be more appropriate to say that beyond that, he is truly one of the world's most beloved figures. Sir David was born in London. From a young age, he became interested in collecting fossils, stones, and natural specimens. In 1945, he won a scholarship to Clare College at Cambridge University, from which he obtained a degree in natural sciences. And in 1947, he spent 2 years with the Royal Navy. When he got his first job in television, he did not even own a television set. What ensued was an illustrious career at the BBC. His work has included many iconic productions, from the groundbreaking Zoo Quest series to landmarks including Life on Earth, The Living Planet, The Trials of Life, The Private Life of Plants, Life of Mammals, and Planet Earth, which many of you have certainly seen. I am delighted that Sir David will present in this room tomorrow excerpts from the new Netflix series called Our Planet. As a BBC producer and executive, one cannot overstate Sir David's influence on today's global broadcasting ecology, nor on his influence in making the protection of nature an everyday conversation across generations in the UK and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Sir David Attenborough for receiving the 2019 Crystal Award.
Thank you, Professor Schwab, Hilde Schwab, and the World Economic Forum for this generous and beautiful award, and for inviting me to Davos. I am, quite literally, from another age. I was born during the Holocene, the name given by scientists to the 12,000-year period of climatic stability that allowed humans to settle, farm, and create civilizations. Those conditions fostered our unique minds, giving rise to international trade in ideas as well as goods, and making us the globally connected species that we are today. Much of what will be discussed here is the consequence of that stability. Global businesses, international cooperation, and the striving for ideals, these are all possible because for millennia, on a global scale, nature has been largely predictable and stable. Now, in the space of one human lifetime, indeed, in the space of my lifetime, all that has changed. The Holocene has ended. The Garden of Eden is no more. We have changed the world so much that scientists say that we are now in a new geological age, the Anthropocene, the age of humans. When you think about it, there is perhaps no more unsettling thought. The only conditions modern humans have ever known so far are changing, and changing fast. It's tempting and understandable to ignore the evidence and carry on as usual, or to be filled with gloom and doom. But there is also a vast potential for what we might do. We need to move beyond guilt or blame and get on with the practical tasks in hand. We didn't get to this point deliberately. It has happened astonishingly quickly. When I made my first television programs, most of the audiences had never seen a pangolin, Indeed, few pangolins had ever seen a television camera. But when, in 1979, I made a series tracing the history of life on Earth, I was aware of environmental problems, but I didn't imagine that we were fundamentally changing nature. In 1999, whilst making the Blue Planet series about marine life, we filmed coral bleaching, but I still didn't appreciate the magnitude of the damage that had already started. Now, however, we have evidence, knowledge, and the ability to share it on a scale unimaginable even just a few years ago. Movements and ideas can spread at astonishing speed. The audience for that first series 60 years ago was restricted to just a few million viewers in southern England. My next series, Our Planet, which is about to be launched here, will go instantly to hundreds of millions of people in almost every country on Earth via Netflix. And the evidence supporting the series will be free to view by everybody with an internet connection via WWF. If people can truly understand what is at stake, I believe that they will give permission to business and governments to get on with the practical solutions. And as a species, we are expert problem solvers. But we haven't yet applied ourselves to this problem with the focus that it requires. We can create a world with clean air and water, unlimited energy, and fish stocks that will sustain us well into the future. But to do that, we need a plan. Over the next 2 years, there will be United Nations decisions on climate change, sustainable development, and a new deal for nature. Together, these will form our species' plan for a route through the Anthropocene. What we do now and in the next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years. I look forward very much to the discussions and insights that will go on here this week, and I thank you again for this very great honor. Thank you.
This concludes the Crystal Award ceremony. We have now the great pleasure to listen to the concert by the Taki Concordia Orchestra in association with the South Bank Centre Orchestra and the Royal Academy of Music, London, as well as Clara Shen, winner of the 2018 Menuhin Junior competition, directed by Marin Alsop. I want to thank very warmly our long-standing sponsor Intesa Sao Paulo, represented tonight by Mr. Stefano Lucchini. May I now ask the Taki Concordia Orchestra to stage.